everyone, this is me, Jyotika Bedi, founder of Happiness is Love. We make relationships better. Today I'm going to talk to you about the word vulnerability. Brené Brown has written a beautiful book on how the courage to be vulnerable transforms the way we live, the way we lead, and the way we parent. And this is the work that we do at Happiness is Love because it is very important to understand what this word really means. So the question really is being emotionally vulnerable the same thing as being weak? There's so much confusion, and I wanted to decode this for my own understanding, and that's why we make videos, so that we can learn together, grow together, and share so that we can build a better world together. So what exactly does it mean, vulnerability, that can be understood so that we can apply it in our every single day lives? Have you ever felt vulnerable is a question that I want to ask you. Maybe you did, but you did not know what it looks like and feels like. Maybe you tried to push those feelings away, or maybe you embraced them knowing that they might not be very good for you in the long run. Our response to feelings of vulnerability can have crucial impact on our health and our well-being. And that's why I thought I'm going to make this video so that we understand first what it really means. There are a lot of ways of defining this word. The term vulnerable means to be susceptible to emotional or physical harm. Another way to describe vulnerability could be at risk. Now, what I really mean is that the definition that I have understood is emotionally vulnerable would mean when I am, like I said, susceptible to both kind of harm, physical or emotional. At the root of it, this harm comes from emotional experiences, especially the ones that are painful. At the root of it, it comes from those experiences which we sometimes want to dismiss, deny, fight, block, or even reject. But being emotionally vulnerable involves a beautiful process, the process of acknowledging our emotions, experiencing the entire range of our emotions, especially the uncomfortable or the painful ones. And this is something that I really struggled with. And sometimes I struggled where we all want to avoid painful and unpleasant emotions. We all want to boost our happy, our positive emotions all the time. However, it is very, very important to acknowledge both our positive, our pleasant, and our unpleasant emotions. It is very important to also acknowledge emotions besides love and joy, emotions such as anger, shame, hurt, anxiety, and loneliness. And because they are uncomfortable, we try to not acknowledge them and run away from them. Well, I did too. I'm guilty of the same. And the reason why we are in the business of learning and development is because I believe that together we can be our better versions. Acknowledging our vulnerability is extremely crucial. The acknowledging piece is important because it is our human nature, like I said, to avoid the experience that hurts us or brings us pain. You do it, I do it, we all do it. Oftentimes, instead of fully experiencing and acknowledging our unpleasant emotions, we try to hide them or pretend that they do not exist. And then we don't know how to deal with these feelings. But the goal is to do things that will help us deal with these emotions better. For instance, when you feel sad, you may call a friend for emotional support and ask for advice. When you feel angry, you may blow off some steam through healthy ways like going for a run, seeking help, listening to music, or you could resort to unhealthy ways such as drinking or eating habits. When you feel anxious, you may remind yourself that it's all in your head and try to look at the situation differently. We always have a choice. We always have a healthy choice to deal with our unpleasant emotions. So what is really the opposite of vulnerability? In psychology, the term emotional regulation refers to the various ways that we influence our emotions, that we influence which emotions we have, when we have them, and how we experience and express those emotions. This is something that we all are used to, and this is something that we all experience, but sometimes we are not aware. And there are few common forms of emotional regulation that we all unconsciously do. 1. Cognitive reappraisal. This involves reframing or reappraising a situation so that you can change its meaning. That means looking at the same situation from a different lens. 2. Expressive suppression. This involves inhibiting or hiding our emotional experiences and expressions. I've done this, I'm guilty of the same. It did not serve me, it was not helpful for me. 3. Distraction. This involves distracting yourself from the emotion eliciting situation. Whatever is the painful situation, you distract yourself because you don't want to deal with it, you don't want to face it. Emotional acceptance. This involves acknowledging emotions, especially negative emotions, as normal responses to stressful events without judging, without avoiding or blocking these emotions. Many of these strategies aim to reduce the negative emotional experience, which is not what you want to strive for when being emotionally vulnerable. There is, however, one strategy that may be aligned with emotional vulnerability. Can you guess which one? If you guess emotional acceptance, then you are right. It is very, very important for us to understand emotional acceptance and vulnerability. Emotional acceptance is an active process that involves turning towards one's emotions and deeply engaging with those emotions. Importantly, emotional acceptance is not a passive resignation to one's emotions. Example, just dismissing or denying the negative emotion or the situation. Rather, accepting and telling yourself, it's okay. And that's how we made videos which are all about it's okay not to be okay. Allowing ourselves, giving us the permission, first acknowledging and then allowing and accepting our unpleasant emotions. Contrary to intuition, engaging with emotions via emotional acceptance does not mean that you are dismissing those emotions. In fact, emotional acceptance can meaningfully improve our emotional health. It can help our relationships because we are allowing ourselves to feel those painful emotions. Just 3 days ago, I had a loss in the family. I lost an uncle who was, of course, 90 plus, had led a full life. And we all, and I experienced that different family members were experiencing different forms of grief. And I was telling everyone, it's okay. Let's allow everyone. It's an individual experience. It's a subjective experience. Let's allow everyone to experience the unpleasant emotions in the way that they think is healthy for them, because eventually the goal is emotional acceptance, and everyone has their own process. It is important to acknowledge our painful emotions sometimes instead of trying to avoid them, hide them, reduce their impact. If somebody's crying, we tend to tell them, don't cry, stop crying. We need to allow people, we need to give them the permission to feel the entire rainbow of emotions. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel your feelings. It is important to note, however, that it is not realistic to always do that. You will be emotionally exhausted if you reflected and pondered upon every single emotion and mood during the day. So vulnerability is also not the same thing as rumination, where your mind is ruminating. You don't want to be obsessed with your uncomfortable feelings. You have to strike the right balance by acknowledging, allowing, and accepting those feelings. This can be a very helpful way for you to understand that I don't have to keep ruminating. Instead, try to meet yourself in the middle path when it comes to your emotional vulnerability. So I hope that these little things that I've shared with you have helped you understand the concept of vulnerability, what vulnerability really feels like. Think back to a time when you felt most vulnerable. The last few years have been very difficult and testing times for all of us. We all feel vulnerable at some point or the other. What did it really feel like? Were you anxious? Were you scared? Did you feel self-conscious? These are completely normal to feel when being vulnerable. In fact, it's a part of the human experience. If there was no threat of potentially experiencing emotional harm or pain, then you would not feel uncomfortable ever. Being vulnerable means that you're taking the time to acknowledge difficult emotions instead of just acting on them right away. Emotional vulnerability can be thought of as a two-way process. The first is simply observing your emotions. For example, observe that you're feeling angry, observe that you're feeling sad or anxious without constantly thinking about it or acting on it. So the first step is just simple observation, checking in with yourself and observing your feelings. The next step is validating your emotions. How might you go about this? Validating your emotions would mean reminding yourself that it is okay to feel whatever emotions you're going through, giving yourself the permission, allowing yourself the freedom to go through what you're going through, whether it is sadness or hurt or pain or anger. This means that there is no judgment or self-criticism. Again, this can go back to the emotional regulation strategy of emotional acceptance, which I just shared with you, so that you can actively engage with your emotions and then take action how to deal with them in the most healthy and helpful fashion. Vulnerability in relationships. Not only is it hard to acknowledge your emotions on a personal or a private level, but it is even more of a challenge to do this with other people, especially loved ones. Nevertheless, vulnerability is incredibly important in our relationships, whether it is our friendships, whether it's our romantic partners or our children, as it helps in building intimacy and trust. Relationships, as we know, are built on trust and communication, which explains why emotional vulnerability actually brings us all close together. And in the last 2 years, when we have faced the most difficult times of our lives, we've all come together. We've all learned that we were hardwired for connection and love. We were not hardwired to face life alone. And it is very important to embrace our vulnerabilities. So remember, if you're willing to open up and share those difficult emotions with your partner, with your children, with people at work, it signals to them it is okay for them too. You will lead by your example. You will model to others and they will mirror you. By challenging yourself to be vulnerable, you are helping not just yourself, but them too in the future. So what are the benefits of vulnerability? Quickly, it can ease your anxiety. It can strengthen your relationships. It will help you become more self-aware, as it did for me, and that's why I'm sharing with you. Acknowledging your emotions and thought patterns will bring you more happiness, peace, joy, and well-being. You begin to recognize, you begin to turn inward. You, instead of just using your defense mechanisms, you realize that you have emotional blind spots too, which need to be observed, which need to be recognized and acknowledged. For instance, when I was younger, I had stage fright and I had difficulty overcoming my anxiety for class presentations. These feelings of anxiety were often ignored or repressed, and they contributed to my feelings of social anxiety. Even after I had gotten over my stage fright, I found myself still getting very, very nervous or anxious when I would go to social gatherings. I couldn't quite understand why this was so. But when I realized that I had never fully acknowledged, given myself the permission and freely experienced the feelings of anxiety from when I was younger, it made sense. It is often the case that more we push away these painful emotions, the stronger they get. And then I challenged myself that I'm going to embrace my vulnerability. I'm going to embrace my anxiety of being on stage, and I am going to challenge myself so that I can be a good public speaker, that I can overcome my anxiety and I can overcome my stage anxiety and deal with it in a healthy way and challenge myself. And today I'm able to make these videos and connect with my tribe, my community, my loved ones, only because of your love and support. And if I had not dealt with my vulnerabilities or my stage anxiety, or I would have allowed my fears to take over me, I would not be doing the work that we do at Happiness is Love. So how to be more vulnerable? Let me make it easy. Acknowledge your emotions by labeling them. Try to describe how you're feeling in the most simplistic terms, instead of resorting to vague descriptions such as, I'm feeling a bit stressed. Be concrete and say, I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling hurt from the fight I had yesterday with my partner. Imagine you are describing how you are feeling to your child. This is an important practice. Your children will model this, and you will see that there will be so much happiness and joy in your house because everyone will take responsibility for their feelings of vulnerability, and you will learn to go a step ahead of expressing them to your loved ones, and then they will follow the same. Journaling can be a powerful way to help you become more vulnerable and embrace it. Try using emotion-focused journaling to help you articulate how you're feeling by acknowledging those emotions. This will help you express your emotions to yourself, which will help you slowly build up your confidence on expressing them to others. Practice being assertive. What do vulnerability and assertiveness have in common? They are both difficult and uncomfortable to practice. I'm here to tell you that it's not going to be easy, but I'm here to tell you it's going to be worth it. By being assertive in your everyday life. Example, start with little things. Telling the waiter your food isn't to your liking in the most polite and respectful way. Voicing your preference with your friends. It can help your brain realize that you are capable of doing challenging things. And this is what I do. And this is how I practice assertion on an every single day. And there are days that I'm not able to, but I remind myself that I can do it. You begin to cultivate confidence in your ability to express difficult things. Open yourself to having those difficult conversations, trying something new that you're holding yourself back from. This will help you, it'll equip you because you will express and acknowledge those emotions. This will help you become emotionally more strong, emotionally more expressive, emotionally more aware. And last, seek professional help. We at Happiness is Love are here for you. If you're looking at any kind of coaching, any kind of mentoring, you have an amazing opportunity to reach out to us, to practice all the skills that we teach you. And together we will learn and we will express those emotions so that we can be our better selves. So we are here for you. I hope this video was useful to one and all. Together, we are building a better world. Vulnerability, I believe, is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. It really is the source of hope, accountability, and authenticity. If we want greater clarity and purpose in our lives and lead more meaningfully spiritual lives, vulnerability is the path. And I quote Brené Brown, thank you for the great work. Lots and lots of our love. Keep smiling, keep shining, keep inspiring.